It's a good weekend to talk about campus esports.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the podcast. To our friends watching over through Esports AcadArena, good evening. Also, or good afternoon. It's 5 p.m. Also, to our friends from Nerd Rage celebrating NerdFest, welcome to you guys as well. My name is Leo, your host for this little discussion. We're talking about campus esports in education, and we're joined today by our esteemed guests, very lovely gentlemen who are taking the time out of their days to discuss a little bit about, again, esports in campus esports in education. Sorry, real quick, just fixing some technical difficulties in the back end. But we have here coming in all the way. Well, I'm not sure. Are you in the country, my dude? A good friend of ours who just recently got his major from University of Washington, Justin Banusing. We have here Mike Alberto, esports coach, and as well currently fighting the good fight in the Ateneo de Manila University. We have here Kellogg. Gentlemen, how are you guys doing? What's going down?
Hey, so I'm doing pretty well right now. I actually feel pretty good right now because I got into my program at the University of Washington. Though, one interesting thing is that most American schools still have classes online, so kind of juggling with that too.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
as
Mm-hmm.
for as for me, just chilling. I'm pretty much focusing on coaching right now. Right now, while I'm here with the podcast, so uh, not a lot scheduled for today, but coming into next week, medyo grind for 1, 2, 3, the three teams that I coach.
Oh yeah, definitely. This whole pandemic kind of put everything on pause. Kellogg, how about you? How are you, man? How are you doing?
Well, Mikey mentioned he's going to be coaching three teams, so I am part of one of those teams. So it's going to be a grind next week.
Okay. Real quick before we get on with the show, we would like to remind everyone that this little podcast right here is working alongside Project Suit Up. Project Suit Up provides personal protective equipment for medical frontliners outside of Metro Manila. Help us support our brave medical frontliners by contributing what we can. How can we donate? Basically, there's a BPI account, Rosella Marie Confiado 0069891918. That's going to be in the caption as well. Or you can contact projectsuitup.ph at gmail.com. Just look for Rosella Confiado once more. Once again, Project Suit Up. This is for the benefit of our frontliners outside Metro Manila. They need them suits. They need protective personal equipment or personal protective equipment. Let's help them out. All right. So back to the show. We're talking about campus esports in education. Where we're coming in from different angles here. All right. These gentlemen here, they are from different generations of campus esports. One of them currently still in school. The other taken an organizer route. The other currently a coach. Why don't we talk about that real quick? Let's talk about their backgrounds. Kellogg, my dude, are you in your last year of school? What's that like for you?
So I think yesterday, Ateneo officially declared that their school year has ended. But even before that, there was no more classes. So we were all given the auto pass and everything. So we were kind of lucky to get that. But of course, we a lot of us kind of miss school, or at least for the seniors, because we didn't get to say our goodbyes to the campus or even to our friends who are already graduating. But for me, I do have another year coming, and it's for the game design part of my major, and I guess I'm just looking forward to that now.
Game design. Wow. All right. So, is that in any way attached to your love for esports? Which came first?
I actually don't know. I think that comes hand in hand for that, actually, because if it weren't for games, playing the games before, even when I was like in grade school, I wouldn't be here in esports right now.
Okay, okay. And real quick, guys, when I talked about the person who's fighting the good fight, that's Kellogg. And Kellogg, you're currently working to make Loyola Gaming, LG Esports, go down its own path. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
So right now, we're just independent organization with no support from the school, but I'm trying to talk to different people from the admin, or at least people who are part of my department in computer science, about to legitimize campus esports, and at least in Ateneo, because right now there's only like the Loyola Video Game League as a unaccredited organization for basically for video games, but they weren't supposed to be super esports super esports focused. They're more of a casual, like for people to just to chill and play video games. Then we came LG Esports, like since before we were just like a team that was competing in trying to compete in Garena LCL, the League of Legends Collegiate League,
Mm-hmm.
but there wasn't really any continuity. So what we're trying to work on now is to make sure that the next generation of uh, gamers for Ateneo, they'd have an infrastructure, or at least something more official than just playing. Like especially it really helps that we have Mikey on board right now. Like it's kind of the draft picture of how the system has to go. Like Mikey has done like the self improvement program for us, and right now we're just trying to tweak that just to make it so that it's applicable for everyone.
Good intro. I mean, Mikey here, currently a coach, and was once working under. Well, was even enrolled in. Sorry, is currently active in Loyola Gaming. You also coach another team, One Snap Esports. What's that like for you, Mikey, these days?
Uh, my time with One Snap Esports, actually, it wasn't really planned. I didn't plan to get into coaching mobile MOBAs or even playing mobile
Yeah,
MOBAs.
yeah. Marvel
But
Super War. That's your current
yeah, Marvel
thing.
Super War. And
Uh
dito nga sa Philippines, it's more of Mobile Legends yung sikat, 'di ba? Pero
huh.
I was fortunate enough to meet kay Saya. Shout out sa friend ko si Iko for connecting me with her. Tapos she got me as coach for her second team in One Snap Esports. And it was a very I guess interesting and rich experience for me because most of my parang competitive career revolved around League of Legends, that MOBA game. So now, uh, siguro in the recent year or two, syempre the trend has been with mobile MOBA na. Paakit na yung trend doon, especially here sa Philippines because of how accessible mobile gaming is. It's a really good experience on my end. Okay na opportunity siya. And I'm glad that I was able to meet the players I coach as well there. Okay talaga siya.
You kind of make it sound like coaching is like this solemn thing, but I'm pretty sure you have your own problems, little issues here and there. We'll get into that later. But Justin, congratulations once more. You recently got your major over in University of Washington. We were talking about that offline, off the air. How interesting that was. How you were feeling anxious going into today. You couldn't sleep before finding out the results. How are you doing, my man?
I mean, it was pretty good. Like, so the thing how it works in the system in the U.S. is I'm currently a sophomore at the University of Washington, and how the major system works there is that most people don't know what they're majoring in until they don't know what they're majoring in until the end of second year, or rather they don't get their major. So you're stuck doing 2 years of like general requirements and prerequisites, and then at the end of your second year you have to like apply to your major. So that was pretty stressful. But now that the major application process is over, I think I can like focus more on just personal development and growth.
All right, so that's a little bit of a background on these gentlemen. Real quick, you guys know each other prior to this, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, good. How did you guys meet? I just want to know that story. I met you all in different parts of your life, but altogether, how did you guys know each other? How did this come to happen?
Well, for me on my end, me alongside Metanoia Pod, Aryan Lim, we co-run Esports AcadArena. So that's how I met Kellogg. And for Mikey, what happened actually is that a team I was helping out before, called the JBL Maroon Dragons, was kind of like the rivals back in the day when Mikey was playing in semi-professional League of Legends. So Mikey actually started out as, I guess, the rival of our friends. So that was interesting.
So, you were in the scene. Your rival, for Zerk, Mikey here. Kellogg, how did you get in? How do you come into the picture?
Oh yeah, so I did meet Justin like what he said in I think in UP Town Center when there was the esports center there. So I just met Justin and they were just like, "Oh, this is Justin. He's from ISC and UW and stuff like that." And then for Mikey, I just met him actually last year, but I already heard of him because I have been watching like collegiate League of Legends since 2017. So I know who for Zerk was. Then I just randomly got a message from him at like 2019, like at night, and then he was just like, "Oh, is your team going to Conquerors Manila this Sunday?" Something like that. And then he was just offering to coach us.
You know what? You guys have such an interesting story, but our friends over at Nerd Rage celebrating NerdFest might have some confusion, right? I'm calling you Mikey. I'm talking to Justin, also known as Poppy. Kellogg here. Is he really a guy named Kellogg? But let me tell you guys, in the world of esports and gaming, people have what they call an IGN, an in-game name. And it's like a moniker that you have when you register in these different games for an account. So that's what we kind of get to introduce ourselves with and get known for. So just in case you're wondering, that's what that is. All right, it's like a work name. So back to the story here. Um, it's going to be an interesting day because we're going to be talking about campus esports in education, and you guys all met through gaming and esports, right? To some extent, mostly League of Legends. But how did you get into such a scene? Was League of Legends your first esport? Was it the first video game you kind of fell in love with? What was that like? Let's start with you, Kellogg. Is this your first? What was League your first love?
League of Legends wasn't my first game. So when I was around like 11 or 12, I think around grade 6, I had the Call of Duty clan, which I don't know how it happened. I was just playing with friends and they had the clan of like we ended like having 40 members in that clan, and then I started doing some YouTube stuff, like some editing of montages or team dodges, and then yeah, so we were operating on one capture card, and then somebody introduced me to Call of Duty esports around 2013, I think, or 2012. So yeah, then I stopped playing COD and I got to playing League when I was in high school. But yeah, it all started with Call of Duty.
So
Yeah,
it
yeah,
started
yeah,
with Call of Duty. It was Call of Duty
yeah,
first. Okay,
of
wow.
course.
I always thought it was League because, well, Call of Duty has been around for a long time. But League is just a little more present for where we are, right? And a lot of our friends are more in the League. For Zerk, how about you? Is there like a Call of Duty story for you as well?
Oh man, League wasn't my first love at all. I think
Hmm.
my first love was Counter Strike when I was really small pa. I remember back when I was even in kinder, I was playing in an internet cafe na. I was playing against grade schoolers and the occasional high schoolers. CS underscore deathmatch parate. Tapos, it was really fun kasi there was this some sort of ego boost that kept me going and playing because I could keep up with those guys. But eventually, I did move on to the original Dota actually, yung Warcraft 3 mod map pa. So that was when I started my ano talaga to how do you say to really cultivate yung interest ko sa gaming, yung original Dota. So medyo late grade school na yun and high school. And eventually I moved on to HON and then LOL. Tas LOL na
Interesting.
forever.
Imagine, like what you were single digit age when you were in kindergarten, right? Like what, 5 or 6,
Yeah,
maybe 7 when you were playing Counter Strike. Something there doesn't
somewhere
add
there,
up.
yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, definitely. I mean, you start them young, and then you get to where you are right now. Who'd have thunk? But yeah, Poppy, how about you? You were into League. Is this your first entry into esports, the world of gaming that we're all in? How did you get into this? How'd you start?
Well, for me, I actually started out in the fighting game scene, or specifically like Super Smash Brothers back in 2014. I started it after like watching a documentary on the Smash Brothers scene, and I started getting involved in the local space, running tournaments, joining events, and that kind of brought me to my first like major trip to Manila. So I'm actually from Iloilo, and then
Mm-hmm.
it was a Smash Brothers tournament in Manila at this event called ESGS that kind of introduced me to esports in general as a whole. And then from there, I just started getting more involved, started running more events, and eventually found myself to League of Legends. And getting involved in all of this esports stuff eventually led to me like sort of getting scouted out for a position at the University of Washington. So after high school, I decided to move abroad, and now I live there.
Interesting. We've got someone who got into Call of Duty, someone who also did a pew pew with Counter Strike, and we've got an FGC pundit here who started with Smash 2014. You said, is this Smash 4?
Yeah, it was actually Project M, and
Project
then
M.
yeah, and then Smash 4. So it was the release of Smash 4. Then like the FGC is like just a really fun place, and it's really inclusive. So I just fell in love with it. Then I got introduced to like greater esports at like the esports as a whole at ESGS, and then I guess you could say the rest is history from there.
All right. Real quick, before we get into the meat of the show, we are going to talk about how campus esports changes lives, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to go for a quick break. Personally, I need to fix something technical real quick. So, boys, real quick, I'm gonna hop out of the call for a wee bit. Is that okay?
Sure.
All righty. I'll see you guys in a few minutes. All right, real quick. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back, friends and family from Esports AcadArena and our friends over at NerdFest. We're back, and we're talking about esports, campus esports in education. And real quick, before we jump into the main topic, I want to say to our friend Neil Santiago, who is asking real quick, outside of esports blowing up, which game in the current generation do you think gave you your fondest gaming memory in the past decade? And are there any cutscenes or plays or moments in these games that gave you chills? I think this is an easy answer here. Real quick, boys, one quick answer from you all.
I guess
Alright,
like
guys.
for me, like my favorite game from the current gen is Animal Crossing. Like I know it's gonna be a bandwagon, but Animal Crossing New Horizon is like my favorite game, or rather most memorable game in the past generation. Mainly because it like came at the time when like everyone's stuck at home and everyone's just uh, trying to like get used to this new normal, and Animal Crossing kind of like provides an alternative look at it where we can still go outside, we can still catch bugs, stuff that we used to take for granted, stuff that was like the mundane in the old normal are things that make Animal Crossing so appealing right now in the new normal, because we can't do that anymore.
Yep. They should call it Animal Crossing New Normal because it gave us the life that we couldn't have, right?
Yeah.
In the face of the
That's
pandemic.
true.
Yep. How about you guys, fellas? Kellogg, for Zerk, what current game are you guys falling in love with, or gave you the chills, or just really made you feel something in the past decade?
The current
You wanna go
gen.
ahead, Ken? Okay, you go
Yeah.
Yeah.
first.
Okay. Well, I am playing some Valorant closed beta right now, so it's actually pretty good. I really thought that I'm really bad at mouse and keyboard FPS since I did come from Call of Duty. That's all controller and
Mm-hmm.
everything. So for Valorant, I know my aim sucks, but I've been having fun with it, even at like 200 ping. You just have to flank the people. But yeah, I did have some kind of CS background just because I used to play with my brother. He's the one who introduced that to me. But right now, just playing with my friends, it's really fun, and you can see how it blew up. Like people have to watch Twitch streams to try to get a key. So I think
Yeah.
it's really smart for Riot to do that, and you can see
Yeah.
that Valorant is just topping Twitch charts.
Yeah, the drops, man, the drops. It kind of skews the viewership though, but that's another story for another day. What you for Zerk? What's your game pick? I mean, these two fellas, they talked about very new games. These are games that came out in the past month or so. Do you have anything new, or is it older?
I mean, it would be weird if I didn't say League because I've invested so much time in it, and
Mm-hmm.
the fact that I'm still investing a good portion of my time in the game now, I
Yeah,
mean, it speaks for itself. Na I really love the game.
yeah,
I feel, but I'm not really much of a not to give hate to like mobile MOBAs or anything. May bias lang talaga ako sa league. But I feel
mm-hmm.
like even though I say that grabe yung Mobile Legends. Yung
Mm-hmm.
impact na meron siya sa esports industry here in the
Yeah,
Philippines. So I have to give it to that game, the community surrounding that, and all of the players too, because it gave so many people an opportunity to let loose and relax, and some of them even moved on to greater heights and started competing. No, so I think it's great talaga all of the opportunities that game brought
yeah.
Filipinos.
Yeah. What's interesting about Mobile Legends is it's two things for me. It's surprising the kind of effect it has, and kunyari, like how long it's been there. We've been running
Mm.
professional leagues about 2 years now, and for something that people thought started out as a ripoff, it's evolved into its own thing, and it's taking over. It's still there. So yeah, Mobile Legends, that's very valid. Right now, though, I think what's driving me crazy, and I think will go on for a longer time, despite it only being around for a week or so, is Legends of Runeterra. I haven't felt anything.
Oh yeah.
I haven't felt that way about a game in a very long time because it merges two of my favorite worlds. It's board gaming and esports, right? Riot taking care of a card game. Come on, what's going on, right? What kind of world are we living in today? It's 2020. But with that being said, let's go back into campus esports. It changes lives, ladies and gentlemen. These three men here, I personally, I don't think I'd be here as well if it weren't for esports. And I come from a very interesting world. Um, Campus esports is something specific, and esports is another story. But um, how different is campus esports and amateur esports, professional esports? Where do we draw the line so we can make definitions and talk about it a little more?
Well, for me, I think the main thing where campus esports differs from amateur esports, at least like outside of the baseline level, which is of course the participants, which is like anyone versus students, is the goal. So in campus esports, while the goal of many teams is to like win, the end goal of campus esports isn't necessarily to win, but to provide an enhancement to the student lifestyle. So I think it's more of personal growth, personal development, and forming friendships that is what campus esports is all about. It's essentially like, I guess what you could call like any other major campus activity, but with an esports twist. And I think that's one of the major differences between campus esports and amateur esports. It's really about growth and development.
And it's more growth and development. And would you say amateur esports, its goal is more to grow into professional, to practice your competitive spirit. I mean, campus esports has a competitive aspect as well, but are their goals that different, or are
Well,
they exclusive even?
I wouldn't say they're like exclusive goals because like there's a lot of people who do enter into amateur esports then to like to grow and learn. Though campus esports is definitely more skewed towards the community and personal development side. You can see a lot of like campus esports organizations and groups. They don't necessarily want to compete, or they're not, or their focus is to not compete, but they want to instead create a community for like-minded people on their campus, for people to identify with each other. And at the end of the day, campus esports really is a place for people to resonate with each other on campus.
Kellogg, do you agree? You're currently on campus, in campus, technically. Would you agree?
Yeah, of course I agree. Just simply because I wasn't really active in a lot of organizations until I started having competing in collegiate esports, and then there I saw the value in connecting with people, trying to work with a team, and then that led me to even work in different orgs also in Ateneo, not just esports, and maybe for my home org or just other Ateneo related stuff.
For Zerk, you currently work in both worlds. You're a member of both countries. You have a citizenship in campus and in amateur, right? One Snap is a little more amateur. Loyola Gaming, a little more campus esports. Well, it's literally campus esports. As the coach, do you think these sentiments ring true? Are you hearing the right things?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like what Justin said. When we talk about campus esports, it's really more about the development of players and students at the same time, like giving them opportunities to grow and not just focus on that one aspect of being a player in a certain game. There's so much more things to esports, like production, uh, yung shoutcasting aspect, yung what do you call this, the the way we prepare events organization. So it's not just playing a game, and we want students from all places to see this, na hindi lang siya basta-basta laro habang nag-aaral. Yun. And then for amateur naman, I think it's great also. It is an avenue for players to be more competitive, to showcase their competitiveness more, to actually be more disciplined talaga in their performance, in their growth in terms of team play and individual play. But at the same time, I think there is some sort of small overlap as well. Kasi if you're an amateur pro player, it doesn't necessarily mean that you don't have time for anything else too. So there are also people who can balance things out and play amateur or even pro, depende sa organization nila kung contracted sila or what. They can still do other things.
Yeah, you mentioned time. You mentioned time for Zerk and how people have to balance certain things. I was wondering,
Mm.
in your experience, especially as a coach, you're the one who usually has to deal with more of the admin side of stuff to make sure your players can perform. Do you notice any difference in the way that the rules of certain leagues, the infrastructures of these esports titles and games are set when they're set inside a campus or in an amateur
Mm.
setting, di ba? Kasi it could be possibly different, right? Because one side you're balancing school and being a young person, because sometimes you're still learning, your character and your personality is being developed. You can't be enveloped in esports at such a young age, like neck deep, di ba? That's such a shock.
Yeah.
But when you're an amateur, people are expecting you to be an adult, and you're allowed to do what you will. So have you noticed any difference in that? Specifically, again, in rules, infrastructure, and even just the way things are set up between campus and amateur.
Yeah, for me, when we're talking about campus, there's a lot of consideration being given to the timing of events. Usually, Because the participants in campus esports, yung mga players dyan, students sila. So,
Mm-hmm.
may yung concerns nila, midterms, final. So, of course, these are things that organizers would want to consider as well. Na hindi ganun ka nag-overlap yung mga bagay na ganyan. As well as, we don't really want, well, from what I hear, most campus collegiate players prefer not too long of a um, not too long of a split or
Mm-hmm. A
not too long
season.
of a season.
Yeah.
Because syempre, like you said, Leo, it's really hard to balance things out when you're a student and you're focusing on esports as well. Whereas sa amateur, there's right now, I can just speak in general, I guess. Lots of like local tournaments being organized by independent organizations. Especially sa Marvel Super War, no? Iba-iba yung mga binabato na local tourneys. Prize pool isn't that big yet because official sport sponsorship by NetEase isn't there yet. But um, more of ano siya, it kind of gives the different amateur teams a chance to gauge where they're at against the other amateur teams and to see sino ba yung top seed, sino ba yung team to beat. Tsaka for themselves as well, what do we need to improve on? It's more of that for now in amateur. I guess for Marvel's Super War specifically.
Mm-hmm. For Zerk, thank you so much. Justin, that was outside, well, no, outside looking in. You're technically the coach, and you're speaking of what you see. As an organizer, you put your own set of events up yourself. Are these sentiments, do they ring true? What do you look out for when you're dealing with students, and what do you look out for when you're looking at amateurs?
Well, as a primarily organizer in the campus esports scene, one thing that we definitely look out for is how this affects their status as students, how this affects their well-being as students. So what Mikey said is it really rings true a lot in the sense that we try to not do splits that are too long or competitive formats that are too long, mainly for two reasons. Number one being having a very, very long format is kind of detrimental to the student lifestyle because they're going to have another time commitment on top of their student lives. So obviously, like spending too much time on gaming while also juggling 20 to 25 credits in a university just isn't feasible for anyone mental health wise or infrastructure wise. And the other thing is also the other consideration is student budget. So obviously, like a lot of amateur teams, even though they're amateur, they do have some sort of like benefactor slash sponsor slash some form of cash support in order to sustain their playstyle or their lifestyle as amateur players. But the thing with campus esports is that they also have to worry about their day-to-day expenses and their day-to-day like just like rent, food, etc. That making them spend so much time or money in internet cafes is kind of a bad move on our part because that could be money that goes towards books, that could be money that goes towards their commute or their school. So we have to make all these considerations to make sure that while they're also competing and while they're also having fun, it doesn't compromise their actual lifestyle as students and as people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And that's the focus for today, right? It's campus esports. Kellogg, have you ever found yourself in the face of a league or a split that had like odd rules that affected your student life?
Well, luckily, I think I've only competed in like Garena run stuff, and it's Esports AcadArena hosted by Justin, and they've really done really well to take into account all of those. But there was one instance in the Garena LCL, it's like in its last split, where it was our finals week during the scheduled matches. I mean, they were able to move our matches, but there was no practice for it, so that
Yep.
just went terribly
It was very
for
tight.
for
It
us.
was tight. Yeah.
Yeah, it was tight.
Yeah, it happens. It happens. For Zerk, does it happen to your players? You ever found yourself in that situation?
I mean, yeah, for sure. Like right now, Ken knows this. He's part of the prod team for yung parang inter-org event nila for League of Legends. Pero at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, they're preparing for AcadArena Aces. So, this is like, anong gagawin natin? How do we weigh things here? As a player and as a member of the production team. So, syempre priorities, um, come into consideration, and it's not just for one single player. It comes in for the whole team, kasi league, for example, is a team game, and we have to take into account lahat ng circumstances ng players natin. That's why it's also an esports sa campus side. It's also an opportunity for students to learn how to communicate effectively in this sense. Um, there's some other dimension in terms of communicating. Hindi lang siya communicating inside the game. So this is just one example of that.
Yeah, yeah. And again, esports here, you learn life lessons. It's not just the game stuff that you're picking up. It's a little bit more. And I think that's a perfect transition into the other half of our main topic. Again, it's not just campus esports, it's campus esports in education. Justin, I need to ask you this, my friend. How does campus esports, specifically on your side of the world, over there in University of Washington, or wherever else you may have experienced esports in the campus side. How is it used to educate students or even people who partake? That's not just the students. How does it help everyone who is a part of the ecosystem in education?
Yeah, so while I'm actually in the US for the University of Washington, we try to take a more holistic approach in terms of our campus esports infrastructure slash system. So we have three pillars, which is competition, community, and career, in the sense that while competition is still obviously like the cornerstone or center of esports, because again it is like the word sports is there, so the word the terminology of competing is still the cornerstone. There's a lot of takeaways that you can get from it in as a person. So at our program, we not only have players at the University of Washington, but we also have back-end people who work on web dev. We have people who work on production, game design, event organization, just a lot of different aspects, because esports is such a varied field. It's such a wide field with lots of different specializations where people can apply their hard skills to. And to quote someone that I'm friends with over in the US, the thing that makes campus esports so appealing is that getting involved with it makes you essentially, by the time you graduate, someone with 3 to 4 years of professional level experience while also being a fresh grad. So it essentially provides a training ground for people to develop as professionals while also still having the safety net of school.
There's a life hack, right? People keep wondering. I'm a fresh graduate, and these companies, they're looking for somebody who has like years of experience, and I just got out of school. This is how you do it, right? You mentioned three C's. I'm sorry, I missed out on the middle one. I believe it's competition, career,
and
and
community.
community. There you go, community. All right. For Zerk, Kellogg, of these three, I'm pretty sure they're all equally important to the ecosystem and to the development of campus esports. But of these three, guys, which one do you think is the most important, or which one do you find the most significant from your own personal standpoint? Again,
Wanna
that's
go ahead, Ken?
community,
Uh,
competition, and career.
Actually having a hard time thinking of
Same.
Right?
something.
It's
I
those are
can go
three
first.
big things. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. It's really hard to pick one out of those three. I kind of want to cheat and say all three are equal in
Mm-hmm.
general, because it really depends on the person. If one really, for example, kung may henyo na League of Legends player, say 16 years old siya, tapos top 1 challenger siya. It's like the highest rank in league.
Prodigy, right?
Tapos
Like,
yeah,
yeah,
prodigy
he's a
talaga siya.
savant. He's a
Then
savant.
yeah, then maybe what would be most appealing to him is yung competitive aspect. Whereas kung you're into esports, enthusiast ka, and you kind of want to grow your network, you want to, or on this side, that sort of side of esports, maybe community. Tapos lastly, yung sa career naman, like what Justin said, for example, you're into events or production, then that's like a really great avenue for you to grow yourself. It really depends on the person for me personally.
But how about you, Ikaw? With your experience while you were in school, of course, you were competing as young as kindergarten, and now
Mm.
as a coach. Which of these three is kind of your focus? would you say?
For me, medyo hand in hand yung community tsaka yung career.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe a bit more on career. Because
Mm-hmm.
personally ako, my plan is to eventually become an esports psychologist. To do that, I need a psychologist's license. So I'm gonna be taking my master's hopefully soon. Uh, but we'll see with this lockdown thing going on. So, yung community naman, I mean, I don't think I'd be here right now if I wasn't able to meet all of the people that I know now. And I think it's great. Like when I was casting with Omi and Arctic Uno, Starforge, just
Theo
like
and
a week
Theo.
or two ago. Yeah, Theo and Theo. They were talking about ano how people from different careers end up meeting each other, working with each other just because of their shared love of esports. And this creates like ang daming mga opportunities that you wouldn't have otherwise thought of if hindi nangyari yung halimbawa yung event na nag-meet kayo dahil lang doon sa esports na yun. So I feel like yung while for me personally more of career, the community thing is something that you shouldn't really take for granted, and I think you can get a lot out of building your community if you're gonna invest your time in esports.
Makes sense. So your heart says community, your mind says career.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess so. Yeah.
Diba, diba? And I also noticed something. It kind of looks like we're wearing the same shirt.
Talaga?
No, no, no.
Ali?
I noticed that you have a stripe. I'm a gray shirt lang, dude. I'm so
Okay,
happy.
okay.
I'm so happy it's
At
not the
least not
exact
much,
same.
man. It's not.
Matching sana tayo.
Okay, twinning. But yeah, Kellogg, how about you? Now that Berserk answered, kanina it was a little bit tougher question, but now it might be a little clearer. For you, which is the most significant? Personally, from where you are right now, community, competition, career.
I'll take the cheater answer too and say all three are equal.
Okay.
Okay, so it's because for competition, I still have a few, like I guess one split left, even if it's cancelled. Like for at least for tournaments, I'm still the support for my team, so I still want to improve and win. I think Mikey will kill me if I say I don't, right? And then for community, I am part of the production team for that org versus org tournament that we have upcoming. So that's something that I'm also enjoying doing, something for the community, for the league players in the Ateneo, so that they can have a tournament representing their organizations. And then for career, I didn't. Now I feel like it's a crossroad because, of course, I'm a computer science. I have computer science graduate. I don't want to say I'm a graduate kagad since wala pa namang diploma, but
Yeah. Yeah,
that
it's
would
not
be
there yet,
that would
but
yeah,
yeah.
you'd be I'd have to think of what to do later on in the future. But esports is in there. After having like a stint of being a caster with CEO Me, Hyron, and I think it was Dash, I was also able to see how it was to be a caster. So yeah, they're just thinking of all three. Then as it's really hard for me to think of what to do next. So yeah, career is also a part of it, and it also helped me grow as a person. Then
I think that's the perfect way to get into one of the questions sent in over chat. Miss Macy Anya Nuevo Arcega asks, how perfect is this, Kellogg? What's the future for someone after campus esports? Is it going into pro? Is it production? Is it events? Is it casting? Right. So what could someone do after getting into campus esports? Who like uh, Kellogg here is about to graduate. Justin is right smack dab in the middle of his time in university. Mikey's about to take masters, so I think that's the perfect place to start. Mikey, where can someone go right after campus esports? Berserk is a coach.
Yeah.
Berserk is a coach, so that's one.
Yeah, that's one. I guess let's talk about for me. Let's talk about casting a bit. I personally didn't want to dabble into casting when I was a competitive collegiate player back then, and then not so recently, maybe like half a year ago to a year ago, si Miss EAA, si Arian, she urged me to try it out. Pinush niya talaga ako mag-try mag-cast, and what do you know? I actually enjoy it. Right now, I'm working on yung machine gun casting. Yung kapag ang dami nangyayari. Pero more of sa analyst ako right now because it comes more naturally for me because I've been playing League my whole life. So it's really easy for me to do that. So for casting, I think that also transitions into a lot of opportunities like hosting, for example. There's an overlap there. It's just that you're doing it live. In hosting in what sort of event? Ang dami namang pwedeng event na mangyari, hindi lang esports. So yeah, I guess that's it for forecasting. And also actually to add, since things are starting to not things but companies and organizations are starting to consider the digital form of work, digital form of marketing because of what has happened recently. I feel like being able to cast well, the skills that you pick out from that can be used for opportunities found in that new layer of work.
Yeah. A lot of people who are capable of how do we say performing in a remote setting. And again,
Mm.
that's another specialist. That's another kind of thing that we train ourselves to do being in esports, right? We were in front of the screen for most of our time. So if you're able to be productive in front of a screen, that already gives you some stuff, right? You could be an analyst for data. You could be into production again. That could be anything from like being technical or being hands-on stage manager, events coordinator. Medyo marami. So I just want to hear from Justin here, Poppy. What else can someone do when they come in to the professional world or when they're done with school doing campus esports?
Okay, so one thing before I do get into that is I'm gonna say that not everyone who's involved in campus esports stays in esports because, as you know, campus esports is essentially an extracurricular. It's essentially an add-on slash enhancement slash enrichment to your university life. Some
Mm-hmm.
people use it as a way, as a platform slash community for them on campus for people to relate to. But maybe, just maybe, like their end goals aren't in esports, and that's perfectly fine. Because what
Mm-hmm.
you get from this campus esports experience isn't necessarily working in esports, but a lot of hard and soft skills that you can transition yourself into any industry. For example, you learn a lot in campus esports. You learn punctuality, you learn professionalism, you learn how to work with people, and I think a lot of people in the professional world still don't know how to work with people, so that's a very good skill. And on top of those soft skills, depending on where you specialize in your campus esports career, you can learn programming, you can learn shoutcasting, you can learn marketing, and just a bunch of different things that you can apply to any field, regardless of whether or not it's esports. And one of the key things that's happening in the U.S. right now is that there are a lot of people who are involved with campus esports while they're students, but the roles they end up in esports, or rather post-campus esports or post-graduation, aren't in esports. They work in one of the big four companies. They work in Microsoft, Google, Apple, uh, like things like that. And while they aren't necessarily in esports, the things that they learned while they're in esports definitely carry over, and it shows. That being said,
Yeah.
there's a lot of people who are in campus esports and enter into the realm of the professional gaming slash esports industry where their skills or what they developed while they were in campus significantly translates into good results. Like it's no surprise that a lot of the people in the industry right now in the US are people who come from a campus esports background. I know basically the entire managerial and coaching team of Evil Geniuses in League of Legends are from collegiate esports. Sabrina Wong, the manager for Evil Geniuses, was basically one of the founders or pioneers of collegiate esports in North America. And FlyQuest, one of the teams in the League of Legends Championship Series, a significant portion of their team, from coaching to managerial to players, are all from the same university. So right after their team like essentially graduated from university, a professional organization just took them in entirely and made them into a professional org. So there's a lot of pathways. You can either go directly into esports and translate what you learned in campus into a job, or you can choose not to go in esports and you can use what you learned there and apply it there.
Yep. Again, there's a lot to pick up from that little bubble of knowledge. But see, really, I think what matters is the fact that you don't always have to end up in esports. Esports on the road to being even more accepted. Like locally, for sure, I can tell you guys that esports is getting there, but we're not there quite just yet. I think we have to really start treating it like an extracurricular and give it that kind of same respect. It has to be like basketball or football that when you played it in college, it doesn't have to take you all the way there. It doesn't have you don't have to play in the NBA or the PBA after, right? It can always just be the backbone of what you were doing, or like the flavor of your college life. But then again, you always graduate with your degree, and that has to be your focus. You're in college, you're in campus to learn. It's for life. It's not to play. But then again, if that's your goal, then that could define the way that you go about it. So again, these people who found themselves going from campus esports into like professional esports, whether it be as a player or being in management or being in the professional realm. Again, it's a whole industry. There's so many avenues to go about it. They got it right. So again, people are gonna have to roll the dice, especially locally, because it's we're all paving our own path, but we're all in this together. So that's essentially where we are now. That's the kind of the road that we have locally. I'm pretty sure you guys have it better over there in the stateside. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually back in the Philippines right now because of COVID, so I'm actually taking online classes in the US. Fun story. But yeah, like, the things are better in the US, but even then, not everyone who is in collegiate esports here in the US ends up in collegiate esports. Like, a bunch of leaders in our university infrastructure here at the University of Washington don't end up in esports. A lot of them, after they did their time in collegiate esports, they found a home, they found a community, then they moved on to the next part of their lives. They became doctors, they became engineers. One of my old friends, or my predecessor, as one of the heads of esports here at UW, is actually in his, I believe, first year of med school. And you know what he said is that, yes, I didn't end up in a professional career in esports, and that was never my goal. But what I did get out of it is a place that I can always call home, a place where I have people who care about me, and a place where I could spend my university life being with people who understand me. And I think that's the
Mm-hmm.
beauty of esports, in that, you know, not even esports, but any extracurricular club, in that you're typically always in a group of people who get you and a people where you'll always feel at home. And that's a thing that I think is really important in university life, because a lot of people do spend university away from their parents, away from their home. Finding your own community, finding a group of people who understand you and can serve as your home in a place that isn't home is really important.
Yep. And that's essentially the community aspect of campus esports, just showing how important it really is. Let's go ahead and ask here, Mikey, coach for Zerk. You are essentially another figurehead in your let's call it your students. Well, they technically are students, especially your players from Loyola Gaming. What do you what kind of lessons do you want to teach them? Being as a coach, well, what kind of lessons do you want them to walk away with, especially after split after split with you in the games they're playing?
I think I want to teach Kellogg over here. Uh, the word I'm thinking of is something similar to ethics, in between ethics and professionalism, but basically that thing na whatever was explicitly expressed when expectation setting was done as a team, whatever you said as a player, that you would commit to, yung follow through, kumbaga, the professionalism side, na you're actually doing what you promised your team, yourself, to do, what you promised to give yourself and your team. So for example, sa start, ito yung kinomit ko na time. May parang common schedule yung buong team. Nag-agree lahat na ito yung common na slot. Tapos may practice. Each and every practice, unless communicated beforehand, Uh, or unless may sobrang important na event or something, you're really gonna hold yourself accountable um to attending that practice or not being late or things like that. So in the game naman, something more concrete in the game, if it was discovered that a certain aspect of your gameplay was somewhat lacking pa at a certain point in time, tapos binigyan naman ng solution sa parang issue or problem na to, then it's the player's accountability na to actually work on it. Because a coach like me can only do so much.
Yeah.
Hindi naman pwedeng parang naka-monitor 24/7 yung coach sa players. I actually don't agree with that sort of style. Because self-improvement is like super key when it comes to actual improvement as an esports player. So that's the kind of mindset that I've been trying to instill sa mga players ko. Yeah.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. If I may, coaching is, they say, the belief that what you want your let's say players do is already inside of them. Ilalabas mo na lang. That's what the definition of coaching is in the realm of development. So with that being said, I love it. You said the follow through. The follow through is what's important for you, and I really do hope that your players pick up on that, because that's such a lesson that you can take up into the real world. And again, it will go well into professionalism and everything that they do. So, real quick, I kept saying earlier that Kellogg here is fighting the good fight, because he is trying to make Loyola Gaming go under its own banner and to really focus on esports as a competitive and community driven initiative. I guess one of the things that really is you know on everyone's mind is the stigma of esports being just all about games. That's one of the few things I think that make it difficult to be accepted, especially locally in the campus space. So I need to ask here. This is for everyone, but I'm going to start with Kellogg here. Kellogg, what do you think is going on in these people's minds who are finding it hard to accept campus esports? What are the issues you think that are being brought up?
Of course, they just think people are just playing for playing, just like wasting their time. But yeah, I think that's the most obvious part. But right now, that's not supposed to be the case. Campus esports should be the key to letting the players themselves who are actually playing learn while they're playing. I think I said play way too much there, but while they are already working with their teammates in game to for a common goal, no matter what game it is, they're learning how to communicate. Number one, number two, for practices, of course, like what Mikey said, when people are already committing their own time, and how they have to follow through. That's already like showing how people can be professional in this scene as long as they uh follow their schedule and keep doing their work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's one. All right. Hopefully, that's something that you can change, especially now that you're proposing and you're bringing it up to the administration. How about you, Justin? What are some of the main issues that make esports in the campus space kind of to the people in authority?
Well, one thing that so Aryan and I and myself as an individual in the US work on a lot is how do you get the mainstream people to see the value in esports? And the typical answer there, or rather the more straightforward answer I would say, is show them the value of what esports can provide to someone as a person, as a professional, and just overall. Like in terms of professional development, one thing that we do present when it comes to esports, when we do present it to administrations and people who in general just want to learn more about esports, is the career development opportunities that there are in esports. So we show them what you can learn out of esports that you can transfer into a professional career, what jobs are present in esports, and by getting involved in esports but not necessarily having an end goal of esports, what can I hope to get out of it? So essentially, what are the learning outcomes and developmental things you can get out of esports? So that's one. And the other thing that we show is what exactly is, or why exactly should someone support esports? And the main thing that we say outside of the whole development thing, is just mainly the community aspect of it being a key part of the student lifestyle. And one thing that a lot of schools and a lot of people like look at definitely nowadays is how to keep people happy, how to keep students engaged on campuses. And to us, or at least how we presented it to the administration whenever we want to like talk about esports, is that it's a key student engagement opportunity, a key way to connect with the students and show them that you care. So one thing that was a major problem at the University of Washington, which I wasn't around thankfully because this was 2015, 2016, was that a lot of people were getting kicked out of the library at the University of Washington because they were playing League of Legends on the school computers. So there
Yeah.
were people weren't able to study, people weren't able to like do a lot of schoolwork because people were holding tournaments there. That was because there wasn't any space for gamers on campus. So what a group of gamers did, what a group of like student gamers did was that they came together, showed how many people cared about gaming on campus, not just as a career, but as a form of entertainment in general, went to the administration and said, we're a big force, we love this is our passion, please support us and give us space. And eventually the administration saw that this was something that the students cared about. They cared about it just as much as sports, they cared about it just as much as dance or hip hop, and eventually we got a space. So now we do have an esports arena at our university. And I think the key steps in order to show people that esports is a thing to be accepted is number one, definitely the career prospects. And number two, showing that it's something a lot of people care about because there's strength in numbers and strength in community.
Key takeaways, I think, again, people think that there's a lack of value with the resources that go into making esports in campus a thing. And second is passion. People care about it. If people, if these authorities see that people care about it and they will follow through with it, then it matters. Mikey, real quick before we wrap up the show, can you tell us what do you think are some of the challenges of esports being accepted in campus?
Okay. For me, there's also this one thing that seems to be a bit shallow, but still meron talagang stigma.
Mm-hmm.
For example, League of Legends player ka, and you're playing League, you're in game. Say you're part of your campus's team. A lot of like parents, or not even parents, or people outside the general population think na okay, it's just a game. Tapos people say you can learn critical thinking, blah 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 blah, all of these things when you're playing a game, but they don't actually see it. So I think it, kailangan mapakita natin sa public na there's actually a lot of thinking involved when you're playing a game. Hindi lang siya basta-basta naglalaro. Like from a like me from a coaching from a coach's perspective, I can confidently say na given whatever instance of one single game, a player is constantly thinking of 3 to 5 things in terms of yung consideration niya, ano gagawin right now, what that player is supposed to do uh, in relation to the state of the overall game, in relation of yung kalaban niya, in relation to yung kakampi niya, in relation to so many things. So I think it's important for people to see na it's not that gaming isn't, just hindi lang siya parang uh, waste of time when it comes to developing yung critical thinking skills.
Okay, I love it. You know what? I think we're supposed to be past that. We're almost what 50 years into making video games, and some people might think that yeah, video games rot your brain, but I think it's the opposite. People should know that it's the opposite. Video games actually like melt your brain because there's so much thinking involved. I get tired playing video games all day. But ladies and gentlemen, that's our take on campus esports in education. Once more, your esteemed guests here. Thank you guys so much for spending some time with us today. For Zerk, Mike Alberto, Justin, Poppy Banusing, and of course, it's Kenneth Alog from LG Esports. Tomorrow, though, we are going to have another take at this, and we're going to go ahead and talk about tips on raising a gamer kid. We'll be having Kaysaya and Miss Joanne Alberto. Mikey, is this your mom?
Yeah, our
I
name's
love it.
Joanna. Actually bukas siya. Buti nga hindi
I
kami
love it.
nagkasabay.
Oo
Medyo
nga eh,
awkward.
oo nga eh. Okay, I'm excited. Tomorrow, again, ladies and gentlemen, tips on raising a gamer kid. Once more to our friends watching from Esports, AcadArena, and Nerd Rage by NerdFest, or NerdFest by Nerd Rage. Please support Project Suit Up. Project Suit Up provides personal protective equipment for medical frontliners outside Metro Manila. You can help us support our brave medical frontliners by contributing with what we can. You guys can donate via BPI to Miss Rosella Marie Confiado 0069891918. And of course, you can also just contact us via projectsuitup.ph@gmail.com and look for Miss Rosella Confiado. Guys, thank you all so much. Once again, this has been Campus Esports in Education on behalf of Berserk, Poppy, and Kellogg. My name is Leo. I'll see you guys tomorrow. You'll have a great evening.